Hello, I'm James, and welcome to another Jonesing for Film theatrical review. Yes, Savages, the latest film from director Oliver Stone. So Savages follows pot dealers Ben and Chan, who decline an offer from a Mexican drug cartel. This pisses off the cartel, so in retaliation, the cartel kidnaps Ben and Chan's shared girlfriend. Now, in an attempt to rescue their girl, Ben and Chan unleash war against the cartel. Now, I haven't seen many Oliver Stone films, just Natural Born Killers and some of Scarface, which he only wrote, he didn't direct. And just with those two experiences, I like what the guy does both behind the camera and behind the pen. But it wasn't his name that pulled me to this film. It was the ensemble cast that he put together. There were some up-and-comers here that I've been following, and some heavy hitters too. So let's start with our two leads. Aaron Johnston plays Ben, the peaceful business side of the duo. Johnston is most familiar to me because of his role in Kick-Ass, a movie which I adore and loved him in. And I really enjoyed him here too. He gave a pretty good performance and I completely bought his character. The other half of the duo is Taylor Kitsch as Chan, the muscle and the brutal side. Out of the three roles I've seen Kitsch do this year alone, this is by far the best one. In fact, I think this is the best I've ever seen him. I honestly think Kitsch needs more brutal R-rated roles. He just seems to fit it. And I really bought the pair's relationship. It felt like they had been friends for years. Then we get Blake Lively as O, the shared girlfriend, and I like Lively. She also gives decent performances, but I found her much better in The Town from a few years back. But she was still very good here. It's definitely a step up from Green Lantern. Now on to the heavy hitters. First off, Benicio Del Toro. I love this guy. He usually plays a scumbag and he always seems to be having a fun time doing it. He was very entertaining here and I was glad that he got this role. He fit it perfectly. Another heavy hitter is John Travolta. Travolta doesn't have a huge part in this, but he still squeezes out a pretty enjoyable performance. He didn't half-ass it just because he had a small part. But the biggest acting surprise came from Salma Hayek. Now, the films I've seen Hayek in, she either doesn't have too big a role, or she's just picked out to be eye candy. So I really wasn't expecting much from her here. And she surprised the hell out of me. She made a fantastic cartel leader. She had some humor, she had some really good emotion, and she was very sinister. By far the best performance in her career, and probably the entire film. Now let's go back to Oliver Stone. The only movie that I've seen from his directorial list is Natural Born Killers, a movie that's pretty interesting partially due to his cinematography. It's interesting for other reasons too, but let's just focus on the cinematography. He brings that cinematography here and it really helps grab your attention. Whether it's the way the camera is tilted or the color filter changes, it keeps your attention. Another good thing about this film is its action scenes and the overall suspense, because there's really not a whole lot of action per se, but there's definitely a lot of suspense, and for this film I feel like it's one and the same. This film is brutal, and it's not for those easily disturbed. When it hits hard. And my heart was racing a few times. However, I did have Taco Bell before going to the theaters, so that may be a contributing factor. Nevertheless, it was a pretty intense experience. Now, the story itself is okay. There's nothing groundbreaking here or anything, it's just okay. I will say, however, that it was not cliched. Every so often I enjoy a film about drug dealers and the trials and tribulations that they gotta go through. In fact, it's not just drug dealers, it's crime syndicates in general. I love films about crime syndicates. Now, the movie is not without issues. There's a few, and they are big issues. First off, some of the dialogue is pretty bad. And it wasn't the delivery. The delivery was fine. It was just some of the lines were written bad. And not all the dialogue's bad. It's just, normally I don't catch bad writing the first time around. So when I do, it must be pretty bad. Just saying. The next thing is that the story gets pretty convoluted towards the end. Points were made near the beginning that are suddenly thrust into the story with no smooth transition. And that's always a big issue to me. Like, yes, they do establish it in the beginning, but they never really bring it up until near the end, when it seems to be more important. And the overall film feels a bit drawn out. There's some unnecessary elements added that do nothing but drag the film down. The movie's like 2 hours and 10 minutes long. I think it would have probably worked a bit better if it was like an hour and 45 to an hour and 50, somewhere in there. There's also some aspects that don't get fleshed out a bit, and not in an ambiguous make up your own idea way. There's just not enough information given to draw out your own conclusion. My next issue is probably the smallest issue out of all of them, but I don't get the purpose of making Blake Lively's character a shared girlfriend. It just felt like an unnecessary and bizarre element to add. And I'm not saying that they don't explain it, because they do. My issue is just the sort of why add it in the first place. But the biggest issue I had, and it turns out it's a big issue for a lot of people, was the ending. I'm not going to say anything else because then I'll sound like I'm ripping off other people, so I'll just leave with the ending was the worst part of the film for me. So overall, I give Savages a good. It's one of those films that you watch now and you enjoy it, you forget it in a few days, rewatch it a year or two later, and then enjoy it again. It's nothing really special, but yeah, I still enjoyed it. So that is my review of Savages. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to visit me on Facebook, follow my Twitter account, and check out my blog. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next review.